Good afternoon. Julie, how are you?
Hi, John. I'm doing great today.
It's so great to see you.
Yeah,
It's a new world for us, isn't it?
it
Communicating with.
sure is. Boy, this is how we're getting our social engagement over computers these days.
It is. It's not as satisfying to me. I'm a high touch person and I like to be up close and personal with people. But in that we can't do that, this is as good as it gets. So it's great to see you. And I love the smile on your face. Looks like are doing pretty good right
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. My family is all at home. We're kind of spread out throughout the United States, my extended family, but everyone is healthy right now and doing what's necessary for everyone to stay safe and knock this COVID-19 down. We're all in it for the long haul.
now. That's great. Well, I know that you're really super busy as a candidate for the governing board of the Scottsdale Unified School District, and I couldn't be more supportive. I just love your energy and what you're bringing to the public discourse and your passion for education. It's just beautiful, and so I thank you for that. Maybe we could. And I'm a candidate for the Scottsdale City Council, and you and I are here together um, because of our shared interests. But maybe for people that don't know us, could you spend just a couple of seconds and give us a little thumbnail sketch of your background and where you're at today? And I'll do the same when you're finished.
I would love to do that, John. Yes, I'm thrilled to be working with you. I think at all times leaders are really important, and caring, compassionate leaders at that. And I do believe you fit the bill for that. And that's one of the reasons why many years ago I pursued my professional training as an educator. I've been a public school educator for almost 30 years and a community activist the entire time because I do believe that public education is the sole great equalizer which remains in our society. I believe it gives people a chance to become who they dream of being. And I've always enjoyed working with students, mainly middle school students,
Yeah.
over the years of my career, and recently retired so that I could run for Scottsdale School Governing Board. I felt like the decisions that are being made for students and school staff were missing a very important voice, and that voice was the voice of an educator and a parent. I do have two children and a husband. My children are 23 and 21. We have lived in Scottsdale for 27 years, and we lived in what's considered the south or central part of Scottsdale, and now we live in the north part of Scottsdale. And we have enjoyed our quality of life and our experience here, but I do believe there are things that we can continue to improve upon.
Good.
So
We're going to
thank you for
spend.
asking, John.
Yeah, you bet. We're going to spend some time talking about those things that we can improve on, and how you and I might see us moving forward in that regard. I moved here in 1985. Moved into South Scottsdale, just south of Indian School Road on 63rd Place, which our kids would have been in the Arcadia School District at that time. And then moved out of Scottsdale just for a little bit and moved into Paradise Valley School District. And we had a son that was at Horizon High School when Dr. Creekard was superintendent there. And
Ah,
he just had an incredible educational experience at Horizon, and PV is a really, really good district. But I also knew that at some point I needed to be back in Scottsdale. Ultimately, I became city manager, and of course, the charter requires us to live in Scottsdale, and I'm really happy to have made that move in 2002. Our other boys attended school in Scottsdale Unified School District, and both attended Desert Mountain High School. But our family roots go really far back because my wife and her two sisters attended Holcomb and Pima
wow.
and Scottsdale High School. And their mother, my mother-in-law, Shirley Greer, was a Scottsdale Unified School District teacher at Yavapai in Tonalea. And so
Very nice. Very nice.
we've got a
I've
lot.
taught at Pima Elementary and Desert Canyon Middle School,
Ah,
and our children went to Anasazi was our home elementary school, and Mountainside Middle School and Desert Mountain. And my son started Anasazi, but then he went into when the district first discussed and thought about being creative and really meeting the unique needs of all students.
mhm,
Um, they started what was called a self-contained or comprehensive giving program. And my friend at the time, who was a governing board member, she had called me and said, I really think you should consider this program for your son. She had dealt with him in, worked with him in Boy Scouts or Tiger Scouts at the time. And
uh,
we did consider it. So we went on to, at the time it was Zuni Elementary for him. And then he went over to Desert Canyon Middle School and then ended up at Desert Mountain as well. So both of my children graduated from Desert Mountain High School, and my daughter Clara, she received her IB diploma from there as well. So I'm very tuned in through my experience as a teacher, working with special education students throughout my career, up through gifted education. I'm very tuned in to the needs of individuals and especially those in our schools. So I do understand the challenges that parents face in finding the perfect fit for their children.
well, that's a great story, and it sounds like both of us have had many years' experience in the with the school district, and our hearts are there.
Absolutely.
That's where our hearts are. You and I just recently started to work together, though. There's been an initiative recently put together by a lot of community leaders, people that were really interested in talking about workforce and education and how those two things relate. Uh, in my campaign, it's over a year now, I've been talking about and aspiring to have education be part of uh, an element of our general plan, which needs an update. And you and I both came from different directions, but we both ended up on the same committee together, the Education and Workforce Committee of Scottsdale 2020. And we met with a bunch of group community leaders just like this that you organized. I appreciate your work on putting that together. And we did a Zoom conference and asked people what they thought were some of the important issues that we needed to face as a community. And, I think what people that are listening to this and watching this right now would like to hear from both of us are some of the things that we think need attending to, things that have sort of elevated themselves to the top of the priority list as it relates to education or community. And you and I can kind of go back and forth with that. But would you mind sharing what you believe, what some of those key issues are that we're going to face as a community moving forward?
Well, I think, John, it's very important that our Scottsdale School District, the sole school district serving throughout the city of Scottsdale, all students have the ability to meet and achieve their goals. So to pursue them and then achieve them. And that comes with the experiences that are very diverse in the schools. And then that also leads to we need to be considering what our workforce interests are. So if we as a city are going to be thinking of the quality of our life, and we are going to be thinking of that sense of community, I think it's really important that the leaders of our district public schools and our city work together to communicate what the needs are, not just here and now, but looking down the road. What are the interests of the community? And I think in order for that to happen, there are at least two of two issues that are really important to consider. The first one is a plan. So how, and John, you had shared this with me, and it's on target. It's like, why is it the city of Scottsdale does not include education in its city plan? We all know that when we plan for our own lives, whether it's day at a time or a week at a time or a year, we have to analyze where we want to be and what we want it to look like. And then we break down those elements into smaller time increments. So, with planning for our city and what we want the city of Scottsdale to look like, I feel it is vital to include what we want the education opportunities to look like for all citizens in the city of Scottsdale.
You
And
know,
I think that's the, like I said before, the one unique thing that public education provides is an opportunity for all. Very diverse educational experience in classrooms that represent the real world. So the plan needs to have that communication between city leaders and school district leaders. And that plan needs to be thought of carefully. Where are we now? Where have we been? And where do we want to go as a city? And we can't move forward. I don't believe we can successfully move forward as a unit without considering the educational needs of every citizen. And also, I think it's something really important to consider is the employees that come into our city. Who are they? And are they having to commute to bring their families into our schools because then it's convenient for them to go to work? Are we including all of our citizens in our education plan? And then how are we communicating? That was like the next big thing that our
right.
group,
Yeah.
big objective that our group felt was really important for there to be a universal communication system that shares the interests, the news, the trends, the data on what we're doing well and what we need to improve on. So that communication system isn't patchwork quilted,
Yeah.
but it's very connected and very thoughtful in the matter that we are needing it to be. So those were two of basically of our five. There were other factors as well. John, what do you have to add to this?
Well, it just strikes me, and I don't think it's been, for lack of trying. There are people that love our school district. There are people that are committed to it and are passionate about it. We have the Business United for Scottsdale
Mhm.
Schools group that the chamber is involved in, and business organizations are involved in. The school district supports the Scottsdale Charros. It is a
Yes.
key initiative of the Charros to support the school district.
Mhm.
We have parent-teacher councils. We have the Scottsdale Education Foundation. We have Scottsdale Education Association. We have lots of groups and lots of people, all good intentioned, working in their own ways. We have Scottsdale Community College, to the eastern side of our community. We have ASU to the south, and we have Sky Song that has an ASU presence, but not a campus really in Scottsdale. And we have so many people that have invested so much time and effort in trying to pull different elements of, as you pointed out, a cohesive plan that is well communicated, that is well thought out, that it has community consensus about what's possible. When I was reading the Which Way Scottsdale report a few years ago, it's now 15 years old, that the Morrison Institute at ASU did. They talked about the fact that education is foundational to the success and sustainability of a community. It's not just an add-on. It's not something that you do when you have enough time or you fund when you have enough resources. It's foundational, and it's something that they identified as an area of great concern. That there'd been some we'd sort of taken it for granted, and over the years, I think we've been increasingly aware of the important role that education plays in the success of our community. And so that's why I am excited about working with you, working with the Scottsdale 2020 group, and working with all interested parties, people that are passionate and wanting to elevate this discussion about the role education plays in our community. Everything from sustaining our property values to attracting new businesses to just creating the kind of community we want. I think we want a community that has smart kids, great schools, and is looked in at by the rest of the country as one of the premier places to relocate because of the quality of our schools.
Right. And I do believe all those organizations that you mentioned, us, Charos, the foundation, all of these organizations really want what's in the best interest of our community. And that's why they're in place. Now, imagine what it would be like if all of those organizations had representatives that would get together and have these honest discussions about where we are and where we want to be. When we talk about attracting innovation and long-term industry to the city of Scottsdale, you had mentioned SkySong. It's a great example. What has SkySong done? Do you remember the Los Arcos Mall that used to be there? What has SkySong done to that area? It has really provided this breath of fresh air. People are encouraged to think innovatively there. The businesses that are there, it's not big corporations. It's where industry really begins, the foundation of industry, and that's innovation. And so that area has really been revitalized, which is a beautiful thing. But I do think, yeah, you brought up the Which Way Scottsdale Morrison Institute study, and I thought it was very interesting as well, John, because there was a consensus. Didn't matter where citizens of Scottsdale lived, but there was a consensus, a concern. And the concern seemed to lead to this whole idea of, are we really a south, a central, and a north?
Oh, yeah.
Or are we a united Scottsdale?
Yeah.
And within Scottsdale, is there a way for us to develop a sense of Scottsdale community? And I think the key factor here is education. Yeah. I think the key unifying factor is education. It doesn't matter if you have little babies at home or you're long past your years of retirement, we all benefit from an educated society, whether it's child care options and where we place them and position them, where our senior centers are, the engagement between our schools and our senior centers. I just feel like we're not reaching our potential. There's so much more we could be doing. And I'm so excited for candidates like you, John, to be serving on our city council, because I've got to tell you, as an educator in Scottsdale schools, and when I was the president of the Scottsdale Education Association, I really tried to reach out to leaders in Scottsdale, this current Scottsdale city council members, and reaching out to the mayor at the time, and having these conversations many years ago was my real wish to have this conversation. So, was I impatient? A little bit, but I'm so glad that John Little is running for city council, because it's this experience of, yeah, we're not side by side, sitting by each other, sharing the same message, but we're through the World Wide Web, we are able to have these conversations and then share it with others. Because I have to believe there are other individuals that work in Scottsdale, that live in Scottsdale, that want to live in Scottsdale and share these same interests as us of what are the ways that we can unify our city and make it become not just the premier destination for a vacation or a few golf outings, but to, again, raise a family here, educate our children here. Our children then stay in the city of Scottsdale and share what they have learned and in creating a better future for our city. So they're not feeling like they can't afford to live here once they've gone through our school systems and gone off to the university level, maybe developed a little bit of work experience elsewhere, but that they feel like they could develop that work experience and share what their talents are here in our own city. So continue to build and foster great leaders in the city. So this is such a key conversation, John.
Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to be talking to an educator who's talking about tourism and economic development. I mean, that's pretty cool. That gets us out of our lanes, that gets us out of our silos and starts recognizing the reality of it, which is this is an integrated system. We're all working together. You also had mentioned babies just a little bit earlier. And one of the things that I remember from being city manager in 2009, actually the recession of 2009 actually began technically December of 2007. But one of the things that we became aware of, just as a demographic trend, was that birth rates fell off about 19% during the last recession. People weren't having as many babies, and there it looked like the curve was flattening in terms of the number of children we could expect to be enrolled in our schools. I'm looking at today with the COVID impacts, the economic impacts, and the certainty that we'll go through another recession and probably another drop in birth rates.
Mhm.
When we talk about being a desirable community that has a diversity of life experiences, I think we all want to be here when we're on fixed incomes and in our twilight years, so to speak. But we also are desperate to have young families come to Scottsdale and to come to our schools. And that's the exciting part to me of living in a city where you have that blend of young families and people in the high earning years and senior citizens all feeling like this is a place that we can live and we can afford to live. What are the impacts, in your opinion, as we see enrollment essentially stabilize and birth rates fall? What are some of the impacts that we need to begin planning for in our community, given those trends? Or perhaps those are trends that you see a little bit differently. So, in either case, share your thoughts if you would.
Sure, I'd love to. Actually, our household is a great example of that experience. When my husband and I got married, we lived down around Granite Reef and Turney area, and we had our children in our first home there. And when our children came to the school age, we actually started looking around at schools. We were looking for that sense of community and um, a lot of people in this day and age look at test scores. I know when we were looking at houses, the realtors would talk about the schools, the district public schools,
Yeah.
and we listened. Whether we were looking in Phoenix or Paradise Valley or Tempe, or I had lived in Mesa before and taught there, so I was very familiar with the Mesa community. Um, and my husband works in downtown Phoenix, so Scottsdale is very centrally located for us. But when we looked at where we wanted to live once our children were born and before they were going to school,
Hmm.
we looked all over to develop it, tried really hard to develop a sense of community. And we knew that's where we wanted to live. Now, my children are 21 and 23. Um, and my husband and I we're not interested in moving outside of Scottsdale, but we have a home that is much too large for us with just the two of us. It doesn't make sense for us. This is really a family size home. So we're starting to consider what is next for us in our next stage of life.
Okay.
So what does that look like? And how do we find a viable space in the city of Scottsdale that is affordable,
Right.
that is allowing us to continue to live our lives at the quality of life that we have come to expect, and we are going to continue to expect. Places where we can continue to learn as adult educated, to be receiving adult education as we see fit, to work, but also to continue to have that great quality lifestyle, John, and to play. And
Yeah.
you had shared this with me before, this idea of, live, learn, play, work, and play.
Right.
That's you had shared that, John. That's a great motto for our city to look at. And the one factor that was missing was the learning factor. So I want our family to continue to live in Scottsdale. Might mean downsizing, might mean looking in a different area. So when we look at our schools as educators, we would constantly consider those trends because that's how our schools are staffed. We look at enrollment trends from the prior years, and we look for by grade levels, like how are we going to get enough staff members and support staff, because the district public schools provide a great employment source within our city as well. We can't forget that. When we're talking about our teachers, we need to understand that in order for children to be educated and educated properly, there's so much more that goes into educating kids than teachers. Teachers rely on the continued support of bus drivers, the mechanics that service the buses that get
Right.
the kids to school, the cafeteria workers that feed our kids often breakfast and lunch. For
Mm-hmm.
some of our kids in Scottsdale, might be the only consistent food source our children have. I know Scottsdale isn't often considered that, but we have children that are on our federal free and reduced lunch feeding program. And during this time of COVID-19, those children continue to receive those meals because of the great employees in this district. And then you look at beyond a campus. We've got groundskeepers, we have facility workers, we have people that go around and, make sure that children are receiving the best instructional strategies, and the teachers and staff members are receiving the necessary training. So Scottsdale Schools is way more than a schoolhouse.
You know,
It comes together to meet the needs of our students. So when we look at those trends, we really need to be considering what next. So let's take a class of kindergartners. Maybe there are 60 kindergartners in a boundary area for a given school. Now we have open enrollment, so we get kids that come in. If there's space, there are families that will come in and bring their kids to our schools that live outside of our Scottsdale school boundaries.
right.
Often that happens because of work situations. They want to become part of their kids' community, and sometimes it's most convenient when it's near their place of employment. So they'll move into an area. They can't afford to live in the city of Scottsdale, but they work here.
Yeah.
They bring their kids in, and they're in kindergarten. Well, if there are 60 kids, it's going to be about three classrooms because of our maximum limit. So about 3 classrooms. If going into first grade next year, we know that there are families that have moved in and they have registered for our schools for the next year, then that would tell us that we're going to need to hire more staff members to meet those first graders' needs. Let's look at the other side of it. That was a growth side of it. If we look at it and we see flattening, or worse would be a decline of enrollment, we need to consider that for staffing needs a year before. Now, sometimes we're pretty good at guessing, but sometimes we're not, because we can't always predict whether families are going to move out or they have moved in but haven't registered their kids for schools yet. So keep that in mind. Like whenever we talk, I mean, it's probably as complex as city planning. I'm not a city planner. I know I appreciate and have the sense that the city of Scottsdale does a pretty decent job with planning. because I enjoy the quality of life. And I don't think we would appreciate the quality of life without that planning it done in a thoughtful manner. So we need to be considering that. So as our enrollment decreases, we need to be thinking about, there are things that we could be better at utilizing the square footage of our facilities. And we have talked together, John, about some of the benefits that a plan, including education, how that could really benefit the citizens of Scottsdale. Right. This facility usage is one of those elements. I mean, think about it. If you could go and take your adult education classes on one of our public school campuses, or we have childcare facilities on our public school campuses, or we increase the workforce training on our school campuses with vocational ed interests, then we're going to be utilizing our facilities better. What about when the school day ends? Sharing those facilities, to me, just makes so much sense of what we already have in place. So how to better utilize those facilities after school hours could also greatly benefit our communities. Kind of like that whole idea of a community school. It's not just for kids learning subject matter, but it continues then after school hours to educate and meet the needs of our community. So there are lots of ways we could be doing things differently and more effectively and efficiently as well.
Yeah, I think that we're entering a new age. I don't know what with the post-pandemic planning looks like. But to hear you talk about those kinds of issues and about facilities and about capacity and really key strategic issues like that, that landscape is going to change. We don't know how yet exactly. I know there's lots of people that are working on trying to anticipate what return to school looks like post-pandemic planning. I think it's really critically important that we recognize, as you have already pointed out clearly, there is a relationship between education and housing. There's a relationship between economic development and education. There's a relationship between tourism and education. This is it's an interrelated, interconnected system. As children go back to school and as they re-enter the classroom, and as our faculty, teachers, administrators, cafeteria workers, transportation specialists, and maintenance people in our schools and our cities begin to look at what I'm going to call the new work. We need to be talking to each other so that we're not duplicating, and yet we're working in a very collaborative way. And I think having, as everybody who's listening to this knows, I am sure, that the school district is a different political subdivision than the city. But there are a lot of people that for years didn't think we should work together because we were different and we're separate. We have different taxing authority. We have a different budgeting. We have different governing boards. But you know what? We have shared issues. And that's where we need to collaborate. And I'm so happy, Julie, that you have decided to run for the governing board. I think that you have this sort of more strategic 30,000-foot level that is enhanced by your street level smarts, having been in the classroom too. So you bring both strategic perspective as well as how to deal with some of the tactical issues to your board experience. I'm excited about your candidacy. I'm going to support you all the way. We have a lot of work to do, but we'll do it together, won't we?
Absolutely, John. And, I'd like to share that my experience in regards to our city, in regards to our district public schools, comes not only from 30 years being in the profession of public education, but also serving within our community as the scout leader, as the athletic coach in the
Sure.
community, the booster parent for an officer of the athletic teams at the high schools, showing up when necessary, being the room mom. Back when in the elementary school, when my kids were there, I took a few years off to stay home with my children. But then as I progressed, always stepping up and offering to help,
Yeah.
not standing on the sidelines, and hoping others are going to be able to understand my perspective or my interests or my point of view, but stepping up and helping. Part of that came into to Clearview when we look at the state of Arizona. I know we're really focusing on Scottsdale here, but I think we need to be considering where Scottsdale fits in our state as well. I mean, this is you talk about that bird's eye view. I served
Mhm.
on the Arizona Education Association Board of Directors for 6 years in an elected capacity, and it allowed me to see the issues, not only in Scottsdale schools, in the state of Arizona, issues of taxation, issues of population, issues of access to services, whether it's education services or healthcare services or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
governments, different types of governments that exist from community to community, as well as a statewide perspective. And then from a national perspective, where do we fit Scottsdale? I think there's an image that we want to continue having Scottsdale being a premier destination, but
You know,
not just,
now that you bring that up,
yeah,
let me just, this is an actual quote related directly to that from the Which Way Scottsdale report. It concludes, it says, but to continue its quality of life cachet and continue the flow of executives and leading industries into this area, Scottsdale must increasingly benchmark its schools among the best in the country. And I
right,
think you're right. I think we need a placeholder for a brand of excellence in education that stands out as a premier place to send your kids to school in the country, not just in Arizona.
right. And not just to send your kids to school, but to live within a caring, inclusive community, I think is vital
Yeah.
to the health and well-being of the city of Scottsdale.
You
I
know,
mean, it all goes together so well. We just need to be thinking, I think, a little bit differently. I think we need to be tweaking. So all these great caring organizations can come together, and the leaders of those organizations can work, again, like I said, effectively and efficiently.
yeah.
Because I believe communication and planning are the keys not only to the success of our school district, not only to the citizens that live in Scottsdale or the industries that come in to relocate to Scottsdale, but then Scottsdale to the state and our state to our nation. So it's all interconnected.
It is.
It,
Well, and to that extent, I think it's time for us to go. But I want to know if would you try a virtual high five with me?
oh, sure.
All right, here you go. Here you go. Thank you, Julie. It was just wonderful speaking with you. We just touched the tip of the iceberg.
I
There's so
know.
many issues that we can and will be talking about that we'll be not just talking about, but be doing things about. We're going to amp up the level of engagement, real meaningful involvement in decision making at the school district and at the city. And together, we're going to achieve everything that we set out to do, which is create excellence in education, put us on the map in this country as one of the premier school districts, and operating in one of the premier communities in America, a point of pride for all of us.
Right. And it's not starting all over, John. I am convinced that with the right leaders in place on our Scottsdale School Governing Board and our city council and our mayor, that with the right individuals that we will be able to do great things for not only a better future, but the best future. So I really appreciate you and I being able to work together, and you putting, like I said before, not just standing on the sideline, but investing to help Scottsdale be what we know it can be. And so, John Little, I thank you for stepping up and running for Scottsdale City Council, because we need educated, passionate, competent, and caring individuals leading our city. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Together we'll do it, all right?
Absolutely.
All right. Take care.
Come on, we can do this. Let's get it. There we go.
All right. Bye, Julie.
Bye-bye, John.
All right.